Alright, how's it going, everyone? This is Anon. None of this is financial advice. This is for entertainment purposes only. Alright, let me get set up. Alright. How's everyone doing? Let's see. Need to go to content. Live and... Alright. Get that set up. Zoom in a little bit. How's it going, everyone? See, people are starting to trickle in. Let's see, did it get sent out to the Discord? Yep, looks like it. Alright, so let's go ahead. First, Dirty got it. Tarif is there. Eat it, goat. What's up, guys? Earthium said he scalped so much money on short-dated wait out of the money. Yeah, there you go. How's it going, guys? This is New York Chimes. I'm too lazy to change my name back. That's pretty good. That's pretty good, guys. How's it going, goat? What's up, P-Chubs? All right. So, we got a bunch to look at today. Where to start? What's up, John? How are you, bud? Alright, so let's take a look and see what we need to look at. I was talking to Sean. So we can start with, what do you guys want to start with? Ethereum? Do you want to start with some of the other focus, like AMC or GME, Bed Bath & Beyond, Genius? What do you guys want to start with? ATER, of course. Come on, Granny Bot, show your face. It's a little early for the bots to show up. They want to push up the price, and then they will show up to tell us to sell. All right, so we'll start with Ethereum. So, as you guys know, we had they were up at what, like 60% at one point today? Alright, I gotta zoom in a bit to kind of show you guys where we're at. If I do that too much, then it'll move. So I guess I'll start here. So, just kind of we're in an uptrend right now. Obviously, we had a gap here. In fact, if I zoom out, we should see, do we have the gap detector on? Let me see if I can put it on again. I removed it. Alright, so put the gap back on. Why is it not showing it for Ethereum? That's weird. Hide settings. I must have messed something up. Oh, you know what? Let's see. No, I had it on the daily. Let's see. Put it on like a 1 minute chart real quick just so I can see. Yeah, so we had that big gap up there. And then let's move it to... Put gap detector on and gaps. There we go. And then let's put it on the 1 day. There we go. We got some gaps showing now. I like the gap detector. I don't know why it's not working. But we do have gaps here. We have gaps here. Gaps up here. And they're not showing up for some reason. That's a pain. I don't know why that is. Anyway. What is this? I guess it shows the distance between the gap. Test the gap. FOMO one more time. Yeah, so we've got a gap right here, and it closes at like, I think 180 something, which, I mean, tomorrow we could test that gap and close it technically. I put this line right here and put it right on that. So this is what Armistice paid, and most of you guys have that's been listening to me for a while. We have basically a theory that we came up with, which is essentially that the last run on a Tyrian, which was here, right? We got pushed down, they got down, went up to 19. This was the secondary run. This is the one in April, right? So we finally kind of broke down and then had a massive day. I mean, this was a pretty big day, right? And we pushed all the way up to 7. So we hit a low, I think, of 210. Yep, 210. And then we pushed all the way up to 726 or 27, something like that day. But you guys remember, like, this is how it starts, right? So we have the one huge candle here, right? They push it up, push it back down. We usually have like 2-3 days of like down, it's over, then it pops back up, and then we kind of get where they're, this is where retail FOMO's in, and this is where basically they're selling out, and they do it in waves, but basically they're selling while we're buying, and then that's what happened. They dropped. I think there was a tiny gap here. Did that close? I guess that did technically close right there. And then we had these, secondary things. We had an earnings run up, and then we dropped from there. And then this is where they announced the dilution right here, right? Because we had the one day where it went up, and then they announced on, after like the preliminary earnings numbers came out, and then the next day they diluted on us. It gaps down there. So we're looking to fill this gap here in the next couple days. This line right here, this turquoise line, is where Armistice paid. So this is how much they bought these warrants for. So the $2 warrants right here, I should bring this over here. So these $2 warrants, which is the purple line, is where they can exercise them. And this is where they paid for them. So basically anything above this turquoise line here is profit for these $2 warrants, but they can't exercise these until April. So what they can do though is they already are sitting on a bunch of shares, and then they also have these warrants that are unlockable up here at 290. So I don't know if they're going to try to run it up here into this range, because anything above this, I mean, they technically could, run up here first, start selling, then unlock their warrants up here, and then, at that point, they have the shares again. So, I don't know quite what their plan is. We could see it kind of run up over the next couple days, right? They've already kind of given the end of the year that things should be better, right? And they kind of have guidance, or not like guidance, but their equivalent of guidance, I guess, which is that they expect to be, profitable, and then on a positive EBITDA for the second half of 2023. So, I'll move this down here so we know that, and then this is where Armistice paid. Maybe I should bring it over here. So the question is, are they going to try to run it up here first, unlock these warrants, because these ones won't be unlockable until April? So the question is, do we have a massive little run here up until here? They start selling, we all get really bullish because they pushed us up, very quickly, like they did here. I don't know yet. Let's see. But we have left a gap now here, which I was hoping gap detector was going to show. I don't know why it's not doing it, because I'm pretty sure if I type in SPY, these ones show the gaps, like right there. This is a gap. They show these gaps here, and actually gap detector, if I take off this one, these are your bear gaps, these are your bull gaps. I don't know why it's not doing it for Ethereum though. Maybe it's too small of a ticker that they don't run the program on it. But I thought they did it. But anyway, we have a gap here, which, you know, it's from like 97 cents to like 104. So that's why I think there's a possibility. Yeah, we are here. Well, I guess technically I move it up here. We are here. So, two ways of looking at it, right? We can look at it like this. They could possibly be trying to get to this range here. Once they get above this line, they're profitable on the shares, right, that they got, because they got shares here and some pre-funded warrants. So anything above this line is going to be profitable for Armistice. And then at this point here, we're going to be sitting there going, okay, you know, now they could be, you know, selling in this range and trying to push it up high enough, or they could go straight up and then try to sell off things here, and then they can still unlock the warrants to get those shares back. Yes, John. Yanov is taking his salary in shares. I believe he said it was 80%. So he's going to take 80% of his salary in shares. And it's just a map like at theme parks. Yeah, kind of. All right, so we got a big gap here to fill. That's possibly we could be filling it tomorrow, because we finished at, what did you finish at today? What was it? Anyone check the aftermarkets? I've been with my kids and wife, and we put the kids down, and my wife and I watched part of a show, and then had to come down here to stream with you guys. Let's see, what did Ethereum finish at in the after hours? Let me scroll back down and see. Shaddy, we're back, folks. Yep. 139, 133, somewhere in that range. After 139 is where we finished. I'll bring that over so you guys can see it. So right here, I guess I could zoom in. So right here, we finished at 139, right? Today we hit a high of, I think, 160 or 159, something like that, which was almost like 60% up, or 159 at its peak. So we almost, you know, once we got up there, I was going like, we jumped 60% in a day almost. Anyway, so not bad. Let's go back here. Yes, I mean, it's all about basically what they are planning on doing, because we know that at anything above this line, but they have to get to this line right here, which ironically is right almost where the gap is. So, I mean, once we hit this and above, that's profitable for Armistice. So, do we go all the way up? And then as they sell shares up here, they can start unlocking these warrants up here, and then that way they get their shares back. Sure. And then we still have a gap down here. So either we're going to see, let's look at the last run. On this run, we had the one massive day, and then the next day it pushed up in the morning and then pushed down. And then the next day it pushed down. Let's check. So that's a Thursday, right? Wait, no. That's a Tuesday. That's Wednesday. Wednesday there. Thursday was this green bar, and then Friday it gapped up here. Monday it pushed down. Tuesday, Wednesday. And so this all happened within a span of like literally, like, let's see, from April 1st until at the peak. So it took almost two weeks and a couple days. So, yeah, 174 to 184, and we're at 190. They're profitable. So that's why I think it's possible we close this gap. The biggest thing is going to be, what's the SPYs going to do? Lost porn with midgets. We are unscrewed, Paxton says. All right. So I'm curious to see what happens tomorrow, because after we had that one massive day, the next day we did have a red day. So, you know, if we follow patterns of the past, let's see. After the one massive day, it pushed up and they actually finished red on the day. Let's look at. I don't want to count the last one, but let's see. These were kind of built up. This was a massive day the next day, right? And then if we go back here, you have the one massive day, next day red. So I would be kind of expecting tomorrow we push up maybe into this gap, close it, and maybe push down, and then finish somewhere like in the 140s. You know, that's just a thought. If we're looking at some of the old patterns, you know, we know they use algorithmic trading on this stuff. So like the question is, you know, we have a better sense of what's going on than back here in April, because here we thought that we were just squeezing the crap out of them, and we were technically, because do you guys realize this, right? So I was going through the other day, and I pull over the Discord real quick so I can show you guys, but I pulled this back out because I wanted to see the old stuff. And let me just kind of scroll back in history. But if you guys remember when GameStop was running up and AMC were running up, there was a ton of bots that were all over YouTube and Discords and everything. We actually got bots on Ethereum. Look at this. ATER cost me my life savings. My wife left me, my children hate me, and YouTubers keep pushing the stocks. ATER, GME, AMC, all garbage. These are all green-eyed bots, right? Perry Pebbles, go apes go. I agree. Hood is the way. They were trying to pawn off Hood on us. Let's see. I sold all my Ethereum today. Sold at 6 was good enough. Now, all of us wish we sold at 6 back then, but you should invest in Hood. Nothing will happen. ATER guys, don't listen to him. Did he even graduate college? Ask him. I highly doubt it. Why are you talking about ATER? The play's over. Give up. This is all happening, right? This is when they failed to deliver over 2 million shares in a day. So FTDs climbed over 2 million at that time frame. So we actually had them nervous, because the last time I saw this many bots out on a single ticker was actually back when GameStop and AMC were running. Trust me, I've been on the squeeze sites for a long time. I haven't seen this come up since us, essentially. I'm guessing at some point BBBY, if it gets out of control, they might come back out. But like, someone's paying for this, and Ethereum scared them last time. So, you know, if you look at this stuff, like, you know, 650 is fair. Why be greedy? Hood is a much better play. Hood, green-eyed bots, you know. So my point is this. We've seen this pattern before where this stock got dangerous for them, and the reason why it got massively put down here was because Armistice unloaded the entirety of all their shares, and so did all the other hedge funds. So all the people that were in, that we were like, oh, maybe they're in it long now, they sold out their entire like 7 million shares, which was basically 10% of the float. And there was a bunch of them that were doing this. So we got pushed down, shorted, probably naked shorted, to be honest with you, or at least what appearance would be, right? Something seems shady. But they were able to push it down, scare retail out, and then, you know, we left gaps all the way up here, down there, you know, so we got pushed down, and then we've been in this just constant pattern, and then this is where dilution happened, and then that's where everything kind of fell apart, where like everybody was like, oh, Ethereum, you know. But we have right now an interesting scenario, which is we know that Armistice now owns shares just like they did back here. In fact, Armistice got their shares unlocked right here, and then literally like days later, the stock went from like 210 to 7. So we saw this happen before. Whenever Armistice gets their hands on shares, all of a sudden you have these random spikes and then massive amounts of like shorting and a push down. So we're a little bit smarter this time around, right? We've identified patterns. We know kind of the game plan. So when you identify this, all right, Armistice paid 190 for these warrants here, but they're not unlockable until here. These ones, though, are open right now. So the question is, do they want to run this up into this range, maybe into the 3s and 4s, maybe even 5? We'll see. But most likely, there's a gap here at like 480s. So do they want to run it back up here if they can make it get up there? I mean, it's going to take a massive amount of like interest on retail's part because they need to unload these shares. And they're using the Armistice shares to short with. No. You're absolutely right. So I think we've all discussed this before. Armistice was probably the one that was shorting Ethereum, and they used these long shares as their hedge, right? Once they can't push it down anymore, like they did back here, they then switch. Because think about this. You guys, if you're a hedge fund, you've been able to push the stock down from way up here at $49 a share. I think they started actually shorting right around here because this is when the shipping crisis happened. And they just absolutely nailed this thing down. Huge gap down. They pushed it down. Everybody was like freaked out, right? And then it ran to 19. Now, obviously, the float was much different back then. But, you know, this is the point is this stock is very volatile. And every single time we have these run-ups, it's usually because, you know, somebody got their shares cheap through dilution, and then they basically pushed it up so they can maximize profit, and then they would short it back down. Run up, short it back down. Same thing now. We've now gapped down. We looked miserable for a while. We hit these lows of like 67 cents or something like that. Something crazy. And now we're finally getting back up. So we just have to identify what we think is the pattern and then kind of stick to a game plan. So we all float down here. Yeah, we're floating down here, and that's not good. We want to be more up here. But I know a lot of people, you know, obviously have been bag holding for a while because a lot of us thought that this was it. This was going to go to 12, 15, everything looked great, and then Armistice dumped the entirety of their positions basically in this time frame right here. And so did probably other hedge funds, and so they were able to basically shake retail out. This time we know a little bit more. So, and a lot of us have been averaging down on the stock. So we now actually have like, you know, a little bit lower, you know, averages than back when people were coming off of this squeeze, when people had averages up in the 15s and we were waiting for people, you know, there were people that had a $15 average. And so when we came up to 7, we were like, oh, it's going to go back up to like 10, 12, something like that. And then boom, like, so. ATER's looking spicy. Could you cover BBBY? Yeah, I can do that. So that's what we know. I think we're good there. Does anyone have any questions? Comments, concerns about this one? Oh, yeah. And for anyone that's new, if you're listening for the first time or whatever, we do have a free Discord. Like, it's honestly just a bunch of us talking about stocks. You know, it's fun. I'll go ahead and put the link in the thing so we can have some new blood in there. It's always fun to have new people to talk to. A lot of times people bring expertise that you don't expect, so that's always good. So let me throw that in there. So this is the link to it if you need to. Boom. But yeah, it could be 2 different runs. It could be this first run up here. They try to unlock these warrants, and then they push it down knowing that they've got these ones down here. So we just don't know at this point, but we're going to see kind of, this was just the first day we've kind of woken up. And we actually got some volume, and they did it on news, right? So the CEO announcing that that he's going to take 80% of his salary in shares. It's supposed to, that probably invokes some confidence that this stock is going to go back up. So, all right, there we go. So let's look at some other tickers, because this was not the only stock to move today. It moved 30% today. Here's Bed Bath & Beyond, right? So Bed Bath & yeah, we do need DZ back, because I'd like to see what he thinks. So we had been in an uptrend. We broke through here. Now the question is this. I want people to realize what BBBY has been doing and what they're going to do. Okay. So we know right now that they were burning cash like it was going out of style, right? We also know that these guys registered a pretty large 150 million, ATM. And what we've been able to kind of identify is that they've been using this. So they've actually been raising money off of this shelf. And if you notice, the shares outstanding on the stock has risen, because if you go to the old filings, I think I showed you guys this the other day. If you go back to, like, for example, let's look at August, right? If you go here in August, we should see, is it right here? They have it somewhere on the bottom of one of these. I think it was like 79 million shares outstanding, 80 million shares outstanding, roughly. Was that it there? Let me find it. Hold on, let me just do it this way. Oh, here we go. They issued 350. Type in shares outstanding. Here we go. So there was 80 million here, right? Can you guys see that? There was 80 million shares outstanding as of August 27th. If you go now to the newest ones, so August, there was 80 million shares. Currently, if you go here to the latest quarterly filing, and we do the same thing, we do the shares outstanding. They didn't label on this one, but I know we found it before. I think we had the same problem last time. They did. That was the quarterly findings that are late. They did disclose something, though, recently. Is it one of these ones? Let's see if it's this one. Because they every time they register something, they have to update their shares outstanding. And what we found out, there was like 101 million. So that means that they've been using the ATM to basically, fund, let's see, is it this one? Let's see if it's this one. Yeah, it's now like 102 million shares outstanding. So, do that. Yeah, I think it was like 102 million shares outstanding on BBBY. Shadi says, I take back all the bad things I said about Yanov. Yeah, I wrote an email to them over this last weekend, and I said, listen, I hadn't contacted them since the day they announced the dilution. I just said I disagreed with the timing of it. I thought they could have gotten more money if they held on a little bit. And they did it with Armistice, which made me upset because obviously, I know it was easy money. They've already done a deal with them once before, but I'm pretty sure that's the people that are shorting them. So I'm like, why are you giving these guys ammo? It left a bad taste in my mouth. But with Yanov actually putting his money where his mouth is, which is basically he's saying that I'm so confident that we're going to go up that I'm willing to take 80% of my salary and put it towards shares, which, remember, that will lock up because those are restricted shares. Insiders, when they buy, that locks up some of the float. So just throwing that out there. But yeah, so just to finish, BBBY now has a float roughly of 102. I think we said, I did bring up Webull because I think Webull does show you, I think, some extra information. So let's see if we can get BBBY on this one. Okay. So we got some of the plots there. Let's make this BBBY. Shares outstanding, 117 million is what they're reporting on Webull. So if you figure we used to have 80 on Bed Bath & Beyond, we now have 117 million. So this has actually not even been updated with that latest figure. But then on top of that, it sounds like they may have registered. Let me see if I can find this real fast. They may have actually registered some extra shares. And I think It was a pinned thing that I saw. I don't know if it's still there. Yeah, so if this is on, so they authorized the 150 million. They, after completion of 12 million shares, they raised $75 million. The company will use the proceeds. Right, so they've already started using that. But someone said that they issued out another ATM on top of that recently. So I'm trying to see if I can find the filings for that, but I haven't seen them yet. I don't know, and I don't see, it used to read something differently. So we know that there's at least some dilution happening on BBBY. So is there going to be more? Possibly. So if you kind of look at this thing, you've got all these gaps up here. There's no more gaps underneath, right? We've already hit all the gaps below. We've got some pretty big gaps here. We've got gaps at basically like 10, 997. We've got gaps here at like 15, 16. We've got another gap up here at 20 to 22. So we've got some massive gaps to fill. Let's see. So they're hammering on about BBBY. I do agree there's dilution happening, so I think that's kind of what's happened on this run. We did gap down, or sorry, gap up here. Did we fill that gap? It may have actually filled today. Let me just pull this over so we can see. Yep, so we gapped up here, and it looks like we just filled here. So could BBBY move tomorrow, get back on this uptrend? Maybe. Like maybe this was just to fill this gap here, and then they would run maybe, you know, if they run into this area, they're going to start diluting again. So it will keep them out of bankruptcy, but at the same time, it's going to increase the amount of shares outstanding significantly. So temporarily, you know, this is the 1 month. Let me, is that right? That's 1 minute. 1 day. Okay, there we go. Paxton asks, how high can the institutions comfortably pump this stock for a warrant run? Oh, an ATER? I mean, if we're being realistic, I already covered ATER. You got to pay it. Or you weren't in here earlier. Okay. Just to finish this off, I'm not going to, you can go back and watch the video. But this is where they paid, right? This turquoise line is what they bought their shares for. So anything above this line is profitable. But these warrants right now are unlockable. These warrants here are not unlockable. So if you're going to basically figure this out, you know, if I was them, I would probably try to push it as high as I can on this first run, see if I can basically sell shares up here and then start, you know, exercising these 320 warrants, and then that way I get my shares back and basically I start selling all the way down. And then once we get around here back in April, we may get pushed down back in this range again, and then they can push it up again to unlock these ones. But they can't unlock these warrants right here until this line. So that's how I drew it up. Yeah, so back to BBBY because I don't feel like we finished up that. So yeah, so we've got these gaps here. We filled this gap here, this bull gap here. So we need to be able to push up tomorrow and see some, you know, like the fact is they need cash badly. Like if you just look at their balance sheet, which we haven't seen the newest one, which I hope they come out soon because I like looking at the balance sheet before I really go too heavy into something. But in this case, it's a squeeze, and you know it's kind of happening across all memes right now. But there is something in the back of my head which I'll share with you guys because you know not like I'm a big streamer. I got 40 people in here, but my thought is this: what would be something that they would love to do? They would love to just get us buying in here and then be able to push it back down, right? So you now this may have to do with swaps They may actually have had to push up because they're using, they'll push the stock up, they'll swap, and then they'll sort it back down. And what would be better timing than we're sitting here, and I just want to kind of zoom out. So this was COVID. This was the COVID crash. And then we had this massive bull market, and we left all these gaps from all the way down at 230s all the way up to we left a bull gap here up at 390. So that still hasn't filled because every single time we've came along this line, this resistance line that I drew out, every single time we've touched it, we've been pushed back down, making lower lows, right? You had this massive run up here in August, gap down here. I don't think this gap's going to fill anytime soon, to be honest with you. Unless we break through this tomorrow, back test, and then head back up, we could possibly fill that gap. But right now, it's really been respecting this downtrend. And, they've raised rates. The money's not cheap anymore. So this is going to be some pain on the market at some point. So the question is, we've seen them come up, bounce. They bounced here, came back up, and they tried to they basically bull gapped up. Excuse me. And it actually started right here. So we opened at like 410 or 409 this day, or 410, and then instantly got pushed back down. And then we actually finished right there. So they tried to basically gap up because they closed the previous day right here in the like 380 or 398 level, and then they gapped up all the way. I think it was like CPI data, it was better than expected, and so they hugely gapped up in the pre-market and then just pushed it back down. We fell back into this channel, consolidated a little bit, and then they've tried again here. I think what they want to do, like smart money, is basically get everyone buying back in, thinking that this was the bottom, the 349. Because look what happened that day. We got massively pushed down, right? We were at 1.349 or something like that. And then that same day, we went basically down like 3% on the SPY to like up 3%. It was a crazy day. I mean, that was a huge. So like somebody bought that dip and just pushed it back up, put it, into this channel. My guess is they were selling during this time frame. So they were selling here, and then now we've kind of pushed here. Now this is going to be their secondary attempt to basically either break out here, or they're going to be selling along this line, and then we're going to make a lower low. And that would be probably, my guess would be like the 340 gap. So if that happens, that's going to affect meme stocks. And what would be an interesting thing is think about this. So what's the date today? It's the 17th, right? So say this carries out like this. It comes down, they close this gap here in the 390s, right? We're heading here. Maybe they push back up one more time to touch it back in February, and then they massively push it down, right? So if they push it down to here, that's going to affect all the other stocks that we've been talking about, right? So look at Ethereum, right? So we're looking at sometime in February. So maybe they come up here, they push into this range, start selling some of their shares, and then we get pushed back down again. And then they use this earnings basically right here to basically try to push back up and then unlock more things. Because by then you're going into March and April, and you could have another secondary run. So that's a weird, like, maybe I'm crazy looking at it that way, but I'm just thinking that, right now the SPY's at a really, really important level. Today we hit 400 again. I'll go back to the SPY. Today we hit 400 again, right? And then since then we've kind of we rejected, right? We touched it and rejected and pushed back off. That was an important test. And so far it failed there, it failed there, it failed there, it failed there. So this is coming up on a very important time in the SPY, because if it breaks up, back tests, and comes back up, we could possibly fill this 420 gap and everything be great. But if it breaks down, we've got 1, 2, I would say these two are more likely to fill. So there you go. I'm looking at the chat, and you guys are talking about milks. milking. Okay. Jason wants to know about levels for GME. Okay, I'll get to that after BBBY. And then let's take a look. Nice assessment on the trend line, Anon. You can usually find lows and highs on that trend trade-off. Yep. And if you look at support and resistance levels, like those are super important. Those are pivot points for people to trade off of them. So we can probably point them out inside the Discord later. I feel like they're milking us when I look at the chart. Yeah. I've never milked a donkey. You guys are fun. All right. I think something would really, really bad would have to happen to fill the SPY gap around 300. I mean, you literally have a war in Ukraine going on. You have China basically opening up again, which could lead to mutations. And I mean, that's a billion-something people that are all spreading around COVID. So, like, if there was another variant to break out and affect the world, it would also affect shipping. It would affect everything. So, like, there could be some more crises that come up. I mean, there's an abundance of bad things going on in the world. So, I mean, at this point right now, it just looks like every single time we've touched this, it just makes a lower low later. So, I mean, we could probably chart that out. If this was going to be, we could throw it down here, and it would probably be somewhere in the 290s. And it could possibly fill these gaps here. If we were to bounce off that and head down, you know, it wouldn't be a straight line. It would be more like, you know, chopping, and then we could hit these, you know, levels here. Then there's only really one more big one down here, and maybe that one never fills. But, you know, World War III breaks out, it's hitting this one. If not, then there. So, okay, let's take a look at GameStop. All right, so we got a nice bear gap up here. Been a long time since we've seen that level. Everything else, though, has been really kind of algorithmically traded. You can kind of see some patterns that have, you know, gone through. We had been basically consolidating in this range, a random spike, and then pushed down, right? And why are they pushing down? Because all meme stocks were getting beat up around the same time frame. So if we kind of looked at it like, okay, GameStop, we got pushed down from basically November all the way into January, right? Let's look at AMC. Same deal. I mean, like the charts look very similar. You kind of consolidated for a bit here in November, pushed up one day, and then made these lower lows down here. You know, no gaps on either chart. Or sorry, one gap for GameStop. AMC, no more gaps. Let's take a look at what's another ticker that kind of went with those. BBBY, same thing, got pushed down all November into January, right? That was the Cohen run in August. So all these stocks have been kind of running together. BB, you look at all of them look the same. There's a reason why we, you know, and if we don't hit dislike, yeah, you can hit dislike if you want, go for it. You can hit like, dislike, I don't care. I don't even look at that stuff, to be honest with you. All right, so all these stocks just took a beating from November into December. Every meme stock, everything, like Nokia's kind of been out now of the meme stocks. What are the other ones? DTC pushed down. Let's look at some of the retail favorites, right? PBIG, same thing, gets pushed down. They've got a bunch of gaps on theirs. So every one of these stocks has just been beat down. And, you know, you can go and say, oh, well, what happened on the SPY? It's because but here's the thing. So all of November into December, right, the SPY was going up. Let's look at IWM, the Russell. The Russell 2000. If you look here, now this has been interesting. They broke out of this channel on IWM, and that's what a lot of these small caps trade on. So, you know, you've got a whole bunch of stuff going here. So this is an interesting development, which is basically that the IWM is breaking out right now. Yeah, they still have this gap up here. Now, I don't know if that will ever hit there, but if the memes run, then it's possible that this actually might fill. But I want to. It would kind of need to back test, or we have to establish some new trend lines, which we can do later. But I just wanted to point out. So let's go back to GameStop. So GameStop right now, the weird thing about GameStop is this: there's a lot, and I mean a lot of hype around, okay, well, DRS, and DRS is a very important thing. I've never watched a group of traders DRS their shares, like the entirety of the float. It's never been done before. Like, it's been done by single individuals with like penny stocks just to prove a point. But like, this is the first time a massive group, and it's not like a small company. Like, it is straight up a couple $1 billion. What's the market cap on them right now? Let's just pull it up. GameStop's market cap is $6.6 billion. $6.6 billion market cap, and retail is locking it up, which is crazy. So, they don't. This is not a popular opinion, but they don't want any of these stocks to squeeze, and they're going to do everything in their power to not have that happen. And they will bury everything, and they will hide, and they will kick and scream until they can't do it anymore. And then they'll probably change rules even after. They don't want this to get exposed, because if this gets exposed, then it basically opens up the market to say, yeah, share prices are actually fake, because these big guys can control every aspect with algorithms that basically, until you have a run like this on GameStop where there was just so much volume coming in, they couldn't handle it. So they literally cheated and just turned off the buy button. But now you're sitting here watching it, and you're like, okay, so GameStop is slowly actually DRSing shares and taking them away from the DTC. So the liquidity is going to go away really, really quickly. It may take another year or two for, retail to really lock it up, and GameStop may raise money in between then, which will put the goalpost a little bit farther back, and maybe the SEC tells them to do that. But what I can tell you is this: they raised $1.6 billion on the last ATM that they issued out, and basically paid off all their debt. Now, AMC needs to do that as well, but I mean, nobody wants to hear that, because it just dilutes your shares. But like, to save the company, they don't want these companies to just squeeze. They want these companies to either raise money and then become valuable again just by holding cash and acquiring other companies. But they don't want this thing to just fly up, because that's not good for the market, because then people go, well, why is this happening? So anyway, for GameStop right now, I think if you look back at this, let's take a line. Let me just take a line here. This has been a very important level right here that we're coming up on. Hopefully I made that straight enough. But maybe we need to move it a little bit. We broke through this area right here where we've seen kind of some bottoms and then some tops. And if you kind of look, you see these bounces off this line. You can see them try to break through there, but then they instantly move up afterwards. So if you kind of we probably have to move it up a little bit. Let's see if that touches a little more points. So we're coming up on this line right here, and that's an important one, I think. So let's see what happens. It's going to be roughly around the $22 mark. And if you guys remember, if some of you guys are GameStop people and Super Stock people, they said if the stock got over 22, it could cause a short squeeze. They said that a couple weeks ago. Or maybe, was it 32 or was it 22? I think it was 22. And that kind of lines up with this magic line that's kind of been in this past, where you see some bottoms and tops of it's basically a pivot point. And we're coming up on that again. So I think that's, hopefully that answers your question. I think your name was John. Was it John that asked for GameStop? But yeah, I think 22 is going to be a super critical level. And I think that if things are going to kind of go nuts, it's going to go nuts maybe in the next couple of weeks. It's possible that we do the beta thing again, where if we run up on some of these meme stocks, the market goes down. So if you kind of like look at this way, okay, so imagine GameStop and all these things start running, right? Well, you had to take liquidity and sell off some long positions, usually to, if you're getting margin called. So that could send the SPY back into a, tailspin. You could close this level at the 340s. You got a gap here. So if you kind of like piece it together and say, what if GameStop breaks through this line and starts moving up, and then a bunch of people have to sell their long positions? That could cause a crash on the SPY. So, I mean, I have a different take than most people, because I don't think that they'll let GameStop MOAS. I think what they'll do is kind of like a Tesla. So if you guys remember with Tesla, see all these gaps down here? Tesla kept gapping up and just squeezing and squeezing and squeezing. Most people didn't realize this, but if you actually go back in their history, I bought Tesla back in this area, right? It was like $10 a share. Then I started buying Tesla when it started squeezing the first time. Like I think I bought some in like the 60s, and then quickly it moved back down to the 20s, and I thought, I almost like was thinking about selling, and then it just took a massive run, gaps up, gaps up, gaps up. And every single time this happened, Elon on earnings would issue out an ATM and raise like billions of dollars to like fund new, facilities, and then has just basically pushed this all up, right? Well, here's the scary thing about Tesla. Look at all these gaps. Like there's a ton of gaps. But what the game plan was, they were able to take all this like short interest and having to short cover across the stock, and because they had Citadel, out of all people, they had to have Citadel have their back, but they basically helped push the stock up and squeeze out some of these shorts that were massively short against Tesla back in these days. And what ends up happening is they end up raising money through ATMs each time the stock kind of runs up, because now they're getting more and more, like they have to dilute less because they're able to raise so much cash. So they were raising a bunch of cash, building facilities and spending it on technology, all these different things. So they joined the S&P, right? They show the split. Yeah, the split was here, right? So they make the split, just makes this massive run all the way up to like 400, and then now we're sitting down here close to 100 again. I guess it finished technically like in the 130s, but look, there's a lot of gaps down here. So that's the only thing that makes me worry about Tesla, in the short term. Long term, I think they'll be fine. They're a large company with, they need to make money on the roofing, to be honest. Like they need to put out those roofs. That's a huge amount of, yeah. I mean, you can kind of see, I guess if you were there, a weird head. This is basically distribution. I made another one here, and then it's down now. So if you were to loop out, and then loop out, yeah, this would be basically a big head and shoulders pattern, and you would probably think that they would come back down into this range if there was a large market crash, because you were going to be seeing a bunch of sell-off in the entire market. That means ETFs are selling, all these other things, so we'll see. All right. Going back, but I think what GameStop would do is they basically would start squeezing up again, right? And then they would probably issue out more shares, and then, people are like, why would they do that? It's supposed to be MOAS. It's because nobody wants MOAS, or at least they don't want retail to get MOAS. They want to be able to be like, oh, the markets are fair and just, and they're not. But, the GameStop would still be inherently far more valuable than it is here. It would be more like here. Imagine if they raised another like $2 billion in cash, bought a bunch of gaming companies with that, like, doing some M&A, kept doing the NFT stuff, and then, at that point they've just got cash to burn. They've got no debt. At that point they'd be worth $50-$60 a share anyway. So anyway, so there you go for GameStop. But this is a critical level, this 22 roughly area. let's see. One I wanted to look at was this. So this was the Genius Group, and that's the CEO that says that he's going to be fighting naked shorts and all this stuff, right? The reason why I find this one interesting is because it's almost so transparent what they're doing that it's almost like comical. So here's the deal. They don't really need the money. They're technically, I think, a Chinese brand, like or maybe Hong Kong. They're based out of, I don't know if it says on here. They've got stuff all over the world. But when you looked at their filings, they're foreign filings. So I'm guessing they're maybe Hong Kong based, but they're technically a like international entrepreneurship school. But they were just absolutely beat up, right? So they diluted a little bit here, but overall they don't have a ton of, they've got some convertible notes here at I believe like 5, but the stock's sitting below $1 right now. But here's the thing, the float is tiny. I mean, this is a small float. So the question is, if you only have like a 7 million share float, and let's pretend it's all floating out there, 7 million shares goes really quick when the stock price is basically, what, 50, 60 cents? So what did we hit today? So volume started actually finally showing up here today. So volume's increased, and can we add that? Let's see, volume, is there a volume one? Just say volume. Yeah, so look, you basically had a stock that was doing almost nothing. They IPO'd, they had some massive volume, and then since then, they've really had nothing, right? Until here. All of a sudden, they had a spike, 2 million shares traded today. Now, this is a stock that only has 7 million as a float, right? So if you start doing the math on that, if this stock gets more interest, there's not a whole lot they can do because, like, there's not a lot of short interest in the stock, at least what's visible. They're claiming they've been naked shorted. They issued out an ATM. They're going to raise money. They're going to dilute on, like, retail. And it almost looks like this guy planned it out because if you look at their, like, filings, he literally issued out, is it here? That they were going to do, yeah, they're doing an at-the-money offering for $7 million, which is not that much. But they're able to do that, right? So they just issued out a ATM on, I guess, January 9th. Yeah, they have no options, so they can't escape and hide their stuff in the options chains. So that is an advantage as far as that goes. But here's the interesting thing, right? So they got these 7 million ATMs. Days later, the guy shows up on YouTube and starts talking about naked shorting and interviews with Wes Christensen, the guy from GameStop. And I think this is a stock that's just going to move up because retail starts looking at it. They'll move up into probably, I don't know, $1, $2. Maybe they go a little higher than that. And then they're going to end up diluting on retail to raise their cash. Now, there's $7 million is not that much, especially if it moves up to like $5, $6, $7 a share. But it's almost like, I don't know if they're just using that money to fund the naked short fight or if this was just a setup. Either way, at least we see it coming because we know that they're going to issue out shares at some point. I think they want to push the stock price higher. And if retail starts going in on this stock, what's going to end up happening is the FTDs are going to get massive. They're going to push the thing up, and then they're going to dilute, which is going to allow the shorts to basically find, some locates. So that will kind of probably kill the squeeze, and they'll push it back down. But the company will have an extra $7.5 million in their, thing. And they really didn't need money that badly when you kind of looked at their, overall. They don't have a ton of, like, stuff on their shelf. Like, it's very little on their shelf. They have a little bit here at 5 that they can issue out these extra 3.5 million shares. So that's probably the target, I would think, is roughly 5. And they've got this ATM. If they can push it up to 5, unlock those, those notes convertible, and options are pretty important for retail to YOLO. Yeah, I mean, but this is a little bit more. So if you look, this company has 2 years of cash left based off of their cash burn, quarterly cash burn. And they're going to raise probably another roughly I don't know, like 15 to 20 million dollars between the two, possibly. Um, I think it's interesting. So because of the small float, that's going to be super interesting to see what happens with this stock, because even if a couple thousand retailers are just buying this thing sub $1, this thing's going to start moving kind of massively. I mean, even when they had just like, I can't see what's that. I can't see what number that is. It doesn't tell you millions. I'll have to look at a different chart, but you can see this was a massive spike in volume. This is the highest volume they've ever had on the stock. So there you go. What's up, Hustle? How are you guys? All right, Carvana. It's in the meme stuff, right? Is that right? Yeah, there you go. Carvana got a bunch of gaps up here. This is another stock that looks very similar to all the other meme stocks, where they had a rough, November into December into January, and now it's starting to show some life. So, they had earnings here. They got pushed down, but, someone's long on Carvana. I think it's like Bill Gates, or somebody is long on Carvana. So it's very interesting to see all these different memes kind of just take the same exact algorithmic kind of downtrend and then pop all at the same time. Everything goes in cycles. I think if you guys check out the videos on the YouTube, I need to finish uploading the rest of the series. But right here, if you go to the main videos, so this guy was back in the 80s, right? So this is back in the mid 80s, and everything he says is still relevant to the market today. It's incredible how something this dated still holds up absolutely. So just throwing it out there. If you want to watch that, there's up to 19. I have to upload them. It came out in all these little chunks, so I just wanted to throw that out there. But yeah, good stuff. All right. So Carvana, I think what's going to be doing what all these other memes is. It's either going to pop off and all these memes are going to explode and you'll see a massive run, and then the SPY's going to probably crash, or it's going to be a trap for retail. Looks like Anton. Yeah, it's not Anton. And so here's the thing. Anton, I think, explained things very well, but Anton is one of those guys, I think, that makes a lot of money selling the information that he has versus actually trading. He runs a trade group, but at the same time, I think most of his money comes from education. And so with guys like that, you go, okay, well, he's making more money teaching than he is actually trading. He has some good stuff in there, but, who's going to, most of us are not paying, I think they wanted something like $3,000 to do a seminar or something like that. And I'm like, I've always kept it free pretty much. If people wanted to donate to the Patreon, that's, totally fine. But, I try to provide all this information for free because I believe that retail needs to get educated, and I'll share anything I learn, and I'll keep working and learning. And I did find some graduate programs that I was looking at just to kind of see, and some of them actually have free courses, and I will do that. Interesting to watch CarMax versus Carvana. Yeah, totally different, right? So Carvana just gets beat down into the dirt. It's probably been shorted all the... What's the short interest on this? Let's take a look. Carvana short interest is, let's just look at this one. It's about $374 million shorted against it, which is about 60% of the float. Wow. Is that right? Yeah, these are actually FINRA numbers. Or sorry, FinTower numbers. No, the FINRA numbers. Sorry, taking a drink of water. Did you cover ATER's options? You know what? I didn't. I see you're following Figuring Out Money. No, I've been watching Figuring Out Money for a long time. I also watch Game of Trades. There's some YouTubers that are just excellent knowledge, way more than I am. Like I've always told you guys, I'm just a Crayon Eating Marine that just enjoys stocks and talking about stuff. And I think both those guys are very, very intelligent. So I will totally give them free shouts out because I watch their stuff as well. Figuring Out Money, that guy does a lot of indices, a lot of indicators, and he just has really good information, and, it's a very different style of trading because, he's looking at more large caps and, most of the stuff there. But, Anon, are you at break even? No, I am not at break even on Ethereum. So I am still cold shower because that's dope. Easier to sell than cars in Denver. Yeah. I covered more of the charts and warrants in the beginning. I will say if you want me to take a look at the option chains, we can do that as well. Yeah, I am nowhere near. What's that? Smoking yuck face? Nah, I'm not smoking. Sound like I've smoked for years, but I'm not. All right, let's take a look real quick at. You're gonna make me do this. All right, I'll do it for you, Hustle. I'll do it for you. Let me log on to my TD real quick, and I will pull up the options chains. All right, so Tyrion options chains. All right. And now I've got to go here, open up all of this, and then screenshot it so you guys don't see all my personal information. But we'll go ahead and do it. So, Tyrion. I'll even pull up the next couple weeks, but there's not much there. Okay, so we'll save this, and we'll call it ATER options 17. All right, so let's pull it up real quick. I'm probably going to have to draw on this, but let's take a look. All right. So with TD, what they do is yellow is in the money, and then everything else here at white is all out of the money, right? So you've got a massive amount of puts that are still in the money, and the only things that are out of the money right now are these two right here, and these two are the only ones that are in the money on the call side. Now, remember, there are covered calls, which are bearish, and there are bullish puts. So you can't always do this, but you can get a rough idea of where the options chain is going. What we did see was a massive amount of 150 calls for this week, right? Now, I don't know if that was retail, if that was somebody else, but there was a large amount, which means that they're going to have to start hedging that if this stays and goes above 150, then there's going to be a good amount of shares that are probably coming due, right? So if you look here, you got it up to there, but then it basically dies off. So they've opened up all these other ones up here, which they did not have before. So we didn't used to have a $45 call. Now we do. But to be honest with you, no, I guess we did, because I guess that's right, because this was the monthly. And that we had this from the previous runs. So this was the farthest out strike that we had back then. That's why there's still open interest there. But nothing happened basically here. Everything that's happening basically is happening in this range right here. So if you look, this was the biggest amount of volume that happened today. It will convert over to open interest unless some people, sold out once it went over that and was in the money. I'm noticing the IV is definitely climbing on Ethereum because my options all of a sudden jumped massively. Because I told you guys for a long time, I've been buying 2024 1 and 150 calls on Ethereum, because at the time it was like 2 years out and they were cheap. Now they're finally getting back up to where they should be. I'm still down, I think, half on most of those options just because when I bought them. But, that's because I wasn't anticipating the dilution that we got. So that means we have a chance of moving up above 150 if they start hedging. And there's not a ton. Like, there's a bunch of 750, or sorry, 750 puts that are open interest there. I don't see a ton here on this side. They're not really heavy on the put side right now. So most people would probably wait to buy puts if they were bearish on this. That's probably safe. I don't think we're running up to 750. So, but, could we run up to 150 and then maybe push up to 2? Sure, that's possible. I still think that's pretty, it's pretty aggressive. I mean, that would be a massive move, because we were last week, sitting in the what was it, 80s or 90s, and now we're sitting at 139. So that would be a pretty massive move up for it to go into the 2s in a matter of 2-3 days. Can we hit 3 by Friday? I'm not playing that game. I mean, anything I'm buying right now is far out as far as theta. Like, I'm buying 24s and 25s at this point. So we're going to find out more tomorrow. If we get massive amounts of volume on the options chains, then sure, that could be. But my guess would be they're probably eyeing more after earnings. So if earnings on Ethereum, let's go back to the chart. So let's say earnings is on roughly February 23rd, right? Is that right? Or is that when they report the yearly? Or is that, let's see, March? I guess that could be, right? March. Is that first quarter? Yeah. So I guess that's the one to watch. So basically it would be end of February. So let's see what the options chains look there, because that would be the one to kind of eye up. I don't see a massive amount piling up there. They've got there's a little bit of open interest that opened right around February 17th, so that's right before earnings. So February 17th would be literally right before earnings. So there is a little bit of open interest there. Not a ton. It looks like there's more stuff stacked up for January 2024 and some building up on 2025. Most people, I think, are staying away from the short-term options on this one, except for the one that's expiring in 3 days. So it's up to you guys. I'm not playing with anything short-term. That's just me. If ATER gets spicy tomorrow, could you please have a live stream? All right. No, here's the deal, right? I'm going to be at work tomorrow. I will bring my laptop in, and let me grab a bunch of cables. I will bring in enough cables that I can hook my laptop in so I can at least live stream the level 2 so you guys can see it. Yeah, so, all right. I'm putting some cords right now in my bag so I can actually remember to bring it in, because I was going to do it today and then I forgot the cords at home. So give me a second. I'm going to put these off with my stuff, and then that way I bring them in tomorrow. All right. I just need 2 Ethernet cables. I got one, and think some of these might be crossover cables, but we'll find out. Crossover cables will not work, but I brought enough where I think I'll be able to make it work. So I'll be able to then stream tomorrow. At least you guys can see the live level 2s. Okay. Yeah, March 7th. Okay, so maybe this one's off because this is showing. This must be then maybe the year end earnings and review, or sorry, revenue. It says date Thursday the 23rd, 2023. Period ending for December. Okay, so this must be the yearly. But if you look here, this one was on period ending in March, was reported in April. If you go here, same thing. Okay, so this is the year end, and then around here it will be earnings. So Seeking Alpha says 3.3, Market Beat says 3.14. It's somewhere in that range. They always have to announce it ahead of time. So we'll know when it gets a little bit closer. But in the meantime, I think we're going to see possibly I'm on the wrong. That's why. How come none of you guys told me I'm on the wrong ticker? That was the problem. Yep, it's in March. So, yeah, guys, where were you at? Make me look like an idiot. Did it all on my own. Yeah, I think we established who ATER acquired HUSA. I think we said it was the squat and go. Was that right? Yeah, trust me. I'm sitting there laughing myself. I was like, why is this not lining up to any of the things I'm looking at? I'm sitting there on Carvana. All right, that makes sense. Okay. All right, so the biggest thing I want to make sure we do, though, is, all right, so if we're going to see this one right here, this is when they're eligible, right, to unlock these warrants. This is when they're going to report. So we got a bunch of interesting things that are going to happen in a short time frame on the stock. So there we go. Wasn't it like who figured? I think Gamer, UK Gamer figured it out, and Dirty. You guys both kind of like collaborated with each other and kind of figured out who it was going to be, right? That's at least what we're speculating. We don't know that for a fact. They've not announced it, but yeah, Dirty and Gamer, UK Gamer, they kind of deduced because it was health and wellness, but it wasn't an essential oil company or anything like that. So I think they figured out it was probably a competitor they wanted to keep it secret because they didn't want to give away a competitive advantage of owning most of the market share. And wasn't it that they sued them for infringement, and it would just be cheaper to buy them, so they just did that? Wait, how much pot did you smoke? Anyway, so yeah, this is where they've got the 8th here on TradingView. So, and that would line up with, they did it on the 8th the year before. You guys thought it was the enema one? The coffee enema? I don't think it's that. All right. Concern is revenue. Yeah, I mean, I think they're going to go through some lumps, to be honest with you, with Ethereum, but at the same time, it doesn't mean that they're not going to push up in price for what this is, because if it goes anything like this run, it's basically Armistice trying to get money and make money on Ethereum, and that's possible that they're going to do it again. And if people are not long on Ethereum and they got stuck in this and they've been bag holding and upset, this might give them a chance to get out if they want to, and then they'll be replaced with people who are long on the stock. So we do have a gap down here, just a reminder for that. So ATER closed a fraction of a cent below the 100 moving average. Yeah, we will probably see some more momentum traders coming in, and that will be what basically Armistice is looking for. They're going to want to pump this and slap the ask and move this stock up because we've got a nice gap here to fill, and this is where they're starting to be profitable. So, once again, this is the last time I'll go over Ethereum, but this right here is where Armistice, anything above this line is where they're profitable on those shares. So we've been sitting down here for a while. Now they're going to try to push this up so they can be profitable and start maybe unlocking these warrants that are eligible right now. And then these warrants right here will be unlockable on this date. So there we go. So you guys, I'm going to jump off. It's 11 o'clock. I told my wife I would get off at 11 so we can finish the show we were watching. But I will come back on. If Ethereum does something interesting tomorrow, I'll come back on maybe. If I can convince my wife that's okay. And let me just double check. Remember, big day here, 2 red days. Right? That was back in April. Remember, big day here, 2 red days. So don't be surprised if tomorrow we move up and then we have 2 red days. Just throwing it out there. So, yeah, you guys have a great evening, and I will talk to you guys on the Discord tomorrow. If anyone was new, you're more than welcome to join us on Discord. It is, I'll throw out the invite one more time. We always like making new friends, so come on, it's free. Yeah, go to bed, dirty. Go to bed. T+3 system. Yeah, I mean, technically trades are supposed to be settled within certain time frames. They can be kicked down the road if they choose to take an FTD instead, but, it is what it is. We're not going to get into those theories at this point because last time we tried to do them, they didn't work very well. So because some days that they were supposed to be basically, buying back in when a bunch of options were due, they just decided to take FTDs. And I actually lined it up when I back tested it. They lined up a bunch of the same ones where they had huge FTD spikes. So instead of covering on the days we thought they were going to, they ended up shorting and not covering those and just eating the FTDs. So, okay, thanks, Random. Appreciate it. I'll take a look at that in a second. All right. Ram sent me something. What stock is that? Random, you still on? What stock? Okay. Small float on that one too. Yeah, so GNS and that. Let me research that before I bring it to everybody else. Oops, my bad. All right. Well, I already blew that, so we'll take a look at that together then, I guess. It's got pretty good volatility. Short interest is somewhat high. But yeah, that's a pretty low float. We'll have to take a look. Let's take a, I'll just throw it in here now. Expon. Interesting. They still have about a year's left cash. They're not burning through it that quickly. They've got warrants at 330 and pre-IPO ones that are not. Neither one of these are registered, so that's interesting. So, I mean, they did dilute there, and there, but they're not a big thing. How's their ticker looking? They have a pretty big gap to fill, though, here. That's a pretty sizable gap, and they've not filled it. They also have a gap here. It popped, but it's like, is there any news going with it too? I'll read up on it. Let me read up on it. I don't want anyone to jump in blindly. So we'll do some research tomorrow. Hit me up tomorrow. We'll go over it. And we will go over it. Okay, there we go. All right, cool. You guys have a great evening, and I'll see you guys on the Discord tomorrow. Did I link the? I think I linked it, right? Did I link the? Where's my OBS? Here we go. Yeah, I linked the Discord. All right, we're good there. All right, night, guys.